Hello everybody and welcome back to Study with Julia. Today I will be giving you guys some oddly specific book recommendations, but my problem is I tried to narrow down my options by including books that I only have in my little home library. It can't be called a library, I don't think I even have 100 books, but you know. So let's see what recommendations I'll give you guys. So our first recommendation is a book that makes you question your own existence. For that, I chose, you guys know I love this book, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. So, why did I choose this book? I think it made me question life and just wonder about, we're all gonna die in the end. It's like, why are we here? But it also showed why we're here. It showed that we have these small pockets, these small moments where life is worth living. And, you know, it's the good moments in life that you're going to remember at your deathbed. So I just think that this was a very interesting book to kind of reflect on our fragile lives and just be grateful for them and be thankful for the moments we do get. I love John Green's books, and I just think that, you know, the characters are very interesting. It's a very good book. I would recommend The Fault in Our Stars to everyone. Recommendation number 2 is a book that will make me feel like I'm living in an alternate reality where dogs rule the world. I feel like I'm gonna have to kind of walk around this. Let me explain. But the book I chose is Love That Dog by Sharon Creech. It's basically a collection of poems, poems, and it's kind of like an email text chain from the point of view of a young child. And I think it's really interesting because, meanwhile, dogs aren't the central topic of this book, but I think it does seem like it's an alternate reality due to the fact that it's from the point of view of a child. You're seeing the world from such a almost naive, innocent point of view. And this child always returns to their dog, to how crucial the dog was in their life, and, you know, the relationships that they had with the dog, the friendship, you know, reflecting on the moments. And I think it's just such a pure and wonderful book in that respect. It is a very short read, but I feel like it's just so emotional and just, it's beautiful. I mean, Benjamin Zephaniah said, is it a diary, is it poetry, is it a novel? Who cares? It's simply the most original book I've read for years. And I think it holds true. It's just beautiful. Recommendation number 3. A book for someone who wants to read fantasy but always gives up. I've got the Polish version of this book here, but it's called Ruby Red by Kerstin Gier. And I think this is, I would consider it fantasy because it's about, you know, time travel and these, you know, ancient secrets and things like that. I think it was really interesting. Before I read this book, I wasn't a massive fan of fantasy at all, but I feel like this is really subtle fantasy. It's because it's kind of modernised with this young school, not too young, but it's a schoolgirl. You know, she's just living her life, and then while fantasy is a core part of this book, I feel like it doesn't press on it, and it's not so out of this world. It makes it seem almost realistic, and this actually comes from a series. I think there's three books. So this is the first one, Ruby Red, and then you've got Sapphire Blue, and then the third book, Emerald Green. So it's a trilogy, and honestly, I think I'd recommend the whole trilogy to you, but for the sake of the book, this is the first one, lays the foundations. I really enjoy this book. I feel like it was quite a quick read. It's got how many pages? I mean, this is Polish version, so it's probably going to be a bit more, like 300 and something pages. But I feel like it really drew me in. I think it was the type of fantasy that I know I said it was realistic, but it draws you into another world, as in it draws you into the book. not necessarily like, you know, out of this world, something really crazy. So if you're just starting with fantasy and you want to see if you like it or not, then I think this is a good book to start with. Right, number 4, we've got a dual POV young adult romance and cozy small town. I've got the Polish version of this book once more, but it's The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. So it is dual POV. It's quite a thick one, I'm not going to lie. And it's dual POV. It's basically this famous author's great granddaughter, and the famous author's died, and she's found a manuscript for like a book, and letters of her great grandmother, but it's unfinished. So they're trying to find an author to finish this story, and they come across a very interesting author. I mean, he has a reputation for being quite arrogant and unpleasant, but he's very good looking, and even though they don't get off on the correct foot, you know, it is classed as a romance, and it is mostly set in a cozy small town, because the main character, Georgia Stanton, so the great granddaughter, she lives, I want to say Colorado, in a small town in Colorado, and I think the small town plays quite a role in the fact that, you know, he's used to living in New York, in a big town, and while she's lived there as well, without giving too much away, while she's lived there as well, you know, she likes going back to her roots, and I think it's important also to see both the POVs in this story. I think that's a critical point, because, you know, every story has two sides, and it's important to see both. But yeah, I did like this book. 5 was fiction for people who work in restaurants. I was very, very stuck on this. The best I could come up with was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. Hear me out, because there's 2 types of people who work in restaurants. I don't know, I think. I've never worked in a restaurant. By the way, I'm still reading this, but I'm basically at the end, and I've really enjoyed this book so far. But the 2 types of people that work in restaurants are people who like working in restaurants and people who don't. I think this is a good book for people who work in restaurants, because if you do like it, you know, you like feeding people, you understand the importance of nutrition and the happiness that food brings into a life. And I think the character of Elizabeth Zott and her whole... I'm sure you guys have heard a bit about this book, but if not, it's basically about this chemist, Elizabeth Zott, who has a couple of mishaps in her research. Don't want to give too much away. She has a couple of mishaps, and she's forced to quit her chemical research job, so she becomes a cooking show host, and, you know, she inspires a nation. But so, I mean, I think this book, you know, describes the scientific importance of food. You know, she delves into the chemistry of food, how to make food good, and the chemistry is actually pretty spot on. You know, it's a very good educational book for further reading. If you don't like working in a restaurant, you know, then she also describes how that might not have been that wasn't a dream job, and I think it's important to realise that, you know, whatever you're doing might not be suited to what you want to do. And I think Elizabeth Zott describes the, how could I put it, the distaste of working in the food industry when she feels like she has bigger things mapped out for her and bigger plans for her life. A book that explores unconventional narratives. American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. This is the one book that I can't believe I'm recommending, but it is the most unconventional narrative I've ever read. This is the one book that I could go on the record to say that I've given 5 stars, but I hope I never ever have to read it again, because it's so mind-bogglingly messed up. I feel like Psycho is not enough to describe the main character. Patrick Bateman is not just a psycho. He's above that level. Certainly an unconventional narrative of someone with, I don't even know what thoughts. I don't even know what. It's the most crazy, out there, and just wrong book that I think I've ever read. I'm speechless when it comes to describing this book, because while it is an interesting book and it is a good book from the point of view, it's not a type of book that I would usually read, personally. But if you want an unconventional narrative, then I doubt you're going to get one more unconventional than that of Patrick Bateman. So, but I do not recommend this. Even though it isn't in a book recommendation video, read something else. I beg. If you don't want to have your mind messed up, read something else. Okay, we've got books that are weird, uncomfortable, and can be funny. So, while this isn't a fun, this isn't a comedy book, it has its moments, it's weird, it's certainly uncomfortable. This is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. I had the pleasure of actually meeting Adam Kay after one of his shows, like a month back, and he is such a nice man. And I think this book really delves into, because I wanna be a doctor, so I've read this book a couple of times now, and it can be uncomfortable. There's some very weird stories, of the medical profession. It has its humours, you have to laugh, you have to cry. You will, reading this book, laugh, cry, just be confused. Work for the NHS or not, if you use the NHS's services, please give this book a read. I think it should be required reading. It was quite a quick reader from what I remember. It's a great book. I feel like there is some medical terminology in here, but it's very well explained, put into layman's terms, so you don't have to have any prior knowledge, pretty much. As long as you know what a stethoscope is, which I think you put on the first page, then you're good to go. But I love this book with my whole heart. It was, it had its heartbreaking moments, it has comedy, it has oh my goodness moments. It has everything, this book. And I feel like it's an important book for everyone to read. Recommendations for interesting books about hidden dimensions of consciousness, perception, or mental transcendence. I put for this We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. If you guys watched my previous video, you might know I wasn't a massive fan of this book. I feel like it does a good job portraying specifically the hidden dimension of consciousness and perception, because the main character, Cadence, she has a little bit of a mishap while she's, at her family's holiday island, because they're loaded and rich and wow. And she suffers from brain injury, I believe it was. And from then on, she's not aware of what's real and what isn't. She gets these headaches. She's in and out of, consciousness and being able to take in the world around her. And we basically have her living her life trying to get back to this island, where there's obviously a lot of PTSD from that big injury. She meets all her cousins and everything. And it's just her struggles, her mental struggles of trying to get around that, be back in that area. And this is also layered with a whole lot of mystery, and the mystery is quite good, It's called We Were Liars because they, as the cousins, collectively refer to themselves as liars. And I feel like there's a whole lot of hidden truths, and then at the end it all kind of unravels. So while I didn't like it for the reason that you know, it was a confusing way to narrate the story, I think it does show you a hidden dimension of consciousness specifically, and it puts you in the mind of Cadence with her, you know, brain injury and, you know, uncertainty of what is going on, which I personally didn't like. But I mean, if you're asking for a recommendation about that, I'm guessing you will. A soul-destroying book now. Winner of the Nobel Prize. One of my favourite books. Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. You know, Polish author, exciting. But this book hurts. It's about an older lady, Janina, and it's her, you know, she's very, and basically the main character lives in this very kind of far away, well, not far away, but like isolated village, I think in the south of Poland. It's very remote, and you know, she had her 2 dogs, and they died, and after they died, or I think they were missing, after they went missing, you know, she was looking for them, she couldn't find them, and you know, she's just left alone. There's not many people around her, and I feel like this book delves into showing the importance of social justice, and it challenges and brings to light the hypocrisy, the, you know, some religious beliefs, and it just explores so many really difficult subjects in a very understandable way, I would argue. I mean, I think this just hit so hard because the character of Janina is so... She's a very different type of person, you know. She's very into astrological charts and things like that. And because of that, it makes it hard for other people to like her. But I feel like as the reader, it's so easy to like her. And it's just, you know, you want her to do the best because she's just a poor older lady trying to get through life, you know. Not many social connections, and it hurts in that soul. But obviously it's also very largely into, you know, being against animal cruelty, against hunting, poaching, these types of things, which I think are also soul destroying, which adds to the physical pain this book brought me. But it's just so great, which brings to light different problems with humanity in such a relatable but also easy to understand way that it's crazy. Book number 10, A Missing Kid Comes Back. I don't really read books about missing children, but the one that came closest was Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, where Fanny Price, she was taken from a family quite a young age because of, you know, her family was quite poor. She was taken to her aunts and uncles, where, as could be expected, she was a bit mistreated, and her life took a very interesting turn. You know, she had a couple of arguments, she had to leave. So she went back to her house. I think this is a missing kid coming back story, but not in the way you think. You know, she wasn't treated as she hoped to have been. You know, it wasn't like prodigal son returning, parties, you know, finally they're back. It was more of a, and there's another mouth to feed type of thing. But luckily, she wasn't there for long. I don't know if I'm spoiling. I don't think it's, I mean, it's Mansfield Park. Like, can I even spoil this book? But it's just, I did really like this book. You know, it's Jane Austen. It's a classic. How could you not like this book? So it definitely encompasses the missing kid coming back, but I think the more predominant themes are the, you know, just the social injustices as per Jane Austen novel, and, you know, just trying to bring to light why women are treated so differently to men, or were in that time. Still are, but that's for another day. So yeah, it's a good book. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to like and subscribe. You can comment maybe what oddly specific book recommendations you want, you know, any recommendations I can give, I'd be glad to put, you know, to input on that. Not very good at it, but, you know, we'll see. I can give it a go. If you guys have any that you want to comment, then do so, as I said. But see you guys all very, very soon. So, bye-bye.